Hello, welcome back to another episode of Voxel Heist, a Unity tutorial series where hopefully by the end we'll have a fully fledged heist game. To begin with, I'm going to say that I think the next couple of episodes are going to be shorter ones, as I have a holiday planned for next week. However, I'm also rather ill at the moment. So I'm going to try and do a batch of settings, as you'll see from the title, and essentially cut them into smaller episodes to have throughout the next few weeks or so. First things first, however, we're going to look at the task that was set last episode. So if I press play, you can see that if I press options, we have this kind of menu pop up. If I press back, we're back here. I will say I have reset my layout because when I kept stopping the game, it would throw me into a random script in a package, I believe. Yeah, so when we press options, we get this kind of options panel. We go back, we're back to the main menu. So again, I'm curious to hear how you guys ended up doing it, but mine was like so. So on the main menu panel, if I focus on this, we have our options button, and I had set this to two things to happen when it was clicked. I passed in the actual main menu panel, and rather than go to any script in particular, you can go to GameObject and then you can toggle it being set active. So I just turned it off, and with the options panel, the same thing, just set it to true. And then if I go to the options panel, the back button is the inverse. So it turns off the options panel, but turns the main menu panel on. So this episode, this is going to be our settings and options menu. I will say part one. When I go through and sort of edit it, it will be the specific things we've worked on. I believe this one will be our audio side of things. So I guess let's get to it. We're going to again begin with a basic kind of layout for our different options and things. So I'm going to turn off the main menu and turn on the options. And I think I'll actually want to give us a bit more space, so I will go back into our anchors and lower this number a bit. And then we can also move our button down a bit. Yeah, I think I'll set it to an anchor instead of the Rex transform default. So the max, do 0.5 and then 2. Yeah, I think that looks alright, right? Yeah. Within our panel, I'm going to set up a new panel, and this will just be a sort of small section of, I guess, the parent panel. So I can do this by just doing 0.8. Call this the audio settings. Oh, not panel, but panel. I have made a script. It currently doesn't have anything in it. It's just called SettingsUI. Get rid of the default. But just wanted to make sure you knew I haven't done anything to this actual script. What I will do first is I will create a UI go with a slider. Zoom in a bit. And we will play around with this slider to get it to a way that we're happy with. So I'm going to increase the height, increase the width. Actually, we're going to do this along the x-axis. So I'll do 0.3 and 1, because then this will scale to a specific, I guess, size that will be modular within our sort of view screen. Don't worry, it's going to look ugly to begin with, but we'll get to a point, again, we're happy with. I'm going to give it a kind of margin on the right hand side. Okay, 25, I think. And yeah, we'll also do the same for the Y. So 0.3, and we subtract 0.3 from 1 to get our 0.7 to make sure that is mirrored. It's not as big, or doesn't fill up as much as I thought it would. Yeah, we'll go with 0.2 and 0.8. So we can now go into our slider, and you'll see that it consists of 3 different things. So a background, a fill area, and the handle area. For the fill area to begin with, we will go into the fill area and get the left and the right, set them to 0, so it spans the entire bar. With our handle, we will turn the image off. This is trial and error for me, because it's been a while since I've fiddled around with this panel. No, that's the one I just changed. Handle, is it the handle width? No. Slider, what's the default? So here we can also see it kind of function as well. So it currently has a minimum and a maximum value of 0 and 1. You can see it's not using whole numbers. We can set it to use whole numbers, but as it's only 0 and 1, it only goes to 0 and 1. Okay, again, set this back to 0. Essentially, what I'm trying to do is get rid of this sort of sliver of fill area. Is it not that? Okay, it is. Oh, I remember, I think. So that is set to 0. We go to our background and get rid of that. So I believe we can now go to our slider, and the fill will also get rid of. And now we can mess around with our colours. So I'm going to drop this down to quite a dark grey, I think, and have our fill be fine. There we go. And lovely stuff. We now have a slider that does what we're after visually. And in the same part, I'll add a Text Mesh Pro text. We're going to assign this to the left-hand side. I'm doing Alt and Shift to assign it to the right-hand side, or sorry, the left-hand side. And give it a margin So just push the text in a bit. We'll auto size, do the alignment to both centers, and we'll just have volume. And I think that's all right. Again, it's very basic to begin with, but it should be okay. And we'll keep the slider actually at 0 to see if, to see when our code updates, hopefully we can have the slider begin as a middle point or something like that. And I'm just thinking about the values, but we'll sort that out later. So now that we actually have our slider to reference, we can go over to our script. So to begin with, I'm just going to do a header, which allows it to look neat in our inspector. I'll call this audio. Because it's not above anything. We will do serialize field, private, but this is going to be a slider, which is taken in from Unity Engine.ui. So when I press tab, this should auto-populate with using Unity Engine.ui, and we'll call it volume slider. Easy. So now we're going to populate our script with different things we want to do with our volume. So what we can do is create a public void, and we'll just do set volume. This will take in a float, and we'll just call this volume. But now we need something to actually affect. So one thing I'd like to grab is access to our audio mixer. Serialize field, private, and see if we can grab it in. Yes, but this will again be using Unity Engine.audio. And we'll just call this our audio mixer. To access the audio mixer within Unity, you need to go to Window, Audio, Audio Mixer, or apparently press Ctrl and 8 at the same time. I'll open up this window here. So you can see it's currently empty as no mixers have been found, but we can create one. We can call this audio mixer, for example. And you can see that there is one master volume, and what we're able to do is add groups beneath it, for example, sound effects and music. When we change our master volume, everything that is within this will also be affected. However, if we affected music on its own, then nothing else would be affected. So with this example, we'll only be affecting our master volume with this, but we can now see what we'd like our values to be. So -80 is the lowest, and 0 I believe is just the default range, and I don't think we'll want to go over 0 because decibels I believe are exponential, which means they just going from 0 to 1 and then 0 to 2. 0 to 2 has more of an effect than just going from 0 to 1. So yeah, go back to our slider and go to our minimum value as -80 and our whole value as 1. You can now see that our value in the bottom right changes from 0 to -80. We'll also create a new game object. This will be our settings manager. And we'll actually get our settings UI onto here. So now what we're able to do is get our slider, but also get our audio mixer through our assets. You can see I just clicked on the little circle and it shows everything that is suitable that can go in. So I'd like to just test that this is working. So I'll press play, go to our options, and you can see it's not working. Brilliant. That is because we're not actually setting the volume. That might help. So what we can do is go to AudioMixer, and yes, we'll need to make it public. So I believe I can go click on the master volume here, and I always forget what button it is. Yes, okay, so it's right click the word volume, and then we'll be able to expose volume of master to script. We now have exposed parameters here. This is the name of the parameter, so I can double click or right click, and I'll just call this master volume. So now master volume, enter. There we go. So now we're able to actually reference this specific volume within our script. So heading back over, we can grab our audio mixer. We can then set the float, and it's doing log maths, but we shall ignore that for the moment and set master volume, and we want to set it to volume. So make sure that this is the exact same as your exposed parameter, otherwise it will have no idea what you're trying to reference. This is one of the downsides to using this method, but I do like it because it is modular and allows for these kind of like subcategories. So now let's have a look and see if it works. So going into options, and the volume still isn't updating. That is because we're not running this function anyway. Oh Lord, it's going to be a long day. So if we go to on value changed, we can drag in our settings manager and go to SettingsUI, and we have the dynamic float. So static parameters will ask for, if I go to set volume, it will ask for a specific float or int or what have you to be entered. However, we can do dynamic float, which means it will be based upon our value here. And let's see if this runs. So to options. There we go. Okay, you can see our master slider at the bottom is now reflecting our value in our slider. Great. I will also add a nice little, not sure what to call it actually, but in essence, when you set the volume to how you like it, play the game and close out of it, when you load it back up, it won't have saved your settings. But I believe we have an easy way of doing this. So we can do PlayerPrefs. So these are for the player preferences, which is just a very nice built-in system, which will save this to our, I think it's either local or roaming in-app data, and it's just a file with information of what we have asked to be set. So for example, I'll go to Start, and yeah, we'll do float saved volume. Crikey. No, it's the default. Yeah, it would be 0. So, I'll just do loading volume. So, with PlayerPrefs, every time we run set volume, so every time we update our volume slider, what we're doing is two things. We're actually setting the volume, but then we're also saving the volume to a folder or a file outside of the game. We're only able to set a couple of different I guess variables, or no, it's data types. So strings, ints, floats. Oh, I think that's it. So imagine we've played the game, we've set the volume to how we like it. As we're doing that, it saves it. We close out the game. When we start the game, we look for we try to get our master volume variable that we set in that file and load it into saved volume. If it's unable to, it will get the default of 0, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. The float value corresponding to the given key returns default value if no float value is found for the given key. Excellent. So default is 0. We then set the volume slider to visualize what we have set it to, and then actually set the volume, which is great because I believe go to main menu, we can go to quit game, and here we'll do playerprefs.save, if I'm not mistaken. So just making sure that we've saved the player preferences. Back in a sec, actually, I'll need to double check this. Okay, so after a quick Google, application.quit runs this automatically, so we don't need that in there. But what we can do, just for, I guess, safety's sake, we can save it as the volume is being set. So in that way, if they just Alt F4 out the game, they being the user, just Alt F4 out the game, then it will actually save that way as well. But yes, in theory, this will be a working way of altering our volume within the game. So now it will be onto the task of today's episode. Back in a sec. And welcome back. So your task for this week's episode is, when I go to options, you'll see that we now have 3 sliders. We have our main volume slider, which still works. As you can see, it's moving the master volume up and down. We have our music slider, which also does the same, and our SFX slider, which also does the same. Now, I believe I could be incorrect in this, but if I press stop, now I press play. Hopefully, yes. So going back to options, you can see that they have saved our required settings, or our own set settings. So we could theoretically quit, but in this instance I'll just stop playing. You'll see how our audio is reset, but when we press play, our volumes return back. This is your challenge for this week's episode. Basically, add 2 more sliders for music and sound effects. And that's it. A short, simple episode, hopefully, but we're covering, I guess, an intro into our AudioMixer. Thank you all so much for watching, Please feel free to like and subscribe, and check out the links in the description. We'll see you next week. Bye.